Hello students. Welcome back to my channel, the Goddess of Econ. You guys are blessed human beings, as the sexy goddess is taking her precious time to teach you the important concepts in economics, in a very concise and easy to understand manner. If you like my lecture videos, please don't forget to recommend my channel to your classmates as well. Today, we will take a short journey together to find an answer to an interesting question: why the supply curve typically slopes upward. I was once damn curious as well. So if you want to know the reason behind it, please follow me. Okay, this graph must be familiar to everyone. This is the graph that students of economics are normally presented with during the very first lecture in an intro econ class. But have you ever wondered why the graph typically looks like this? Well, maybe no one would wonder why the demand curve slopes downward, because it is relatively intuitive. You wouldn't argue that the quantity of a good demanded typically goes up, not down, as the good gets cheaper and cheaper. On the contrary, the more expensive the good becomes, its quantity demanded normally falls. Of course, this is assuming that it is an ordinary good, and not some weird stuff that defies the law of demand. But how about the law of supply? Have you ever wondered why firms would produce more when the price of a good becomes higher? Wouldn't these firms want to make as much profit as possible in any case? Hence, even when the price is low, wouldn't the firms want to produce as many goods as possible? This is, of course, assuming the firms don't incur losses. So why? To be honest, when I was a beginner of economics, I didn't understand the law of supply at all. It was only later when I was introduced to the theory of production or producer theory that it made all the sense to me. To tell you the answer right away, the reason has to do with the law of diminishing marginal product. What is the law of diminishing marginal product or productivity? Well, let me explain it using a simple example as follows. Suppose you own a small cafe and hire one worker. This worker you hire would help you make and serve coffee and sandwiches to customers in a timely manner. Now, let's say you go on to hire one more worker. Will this second worker be able to contribute as much as the first worker to total production? Well, maybe. Or maybe not. If we assume that there's only one coffee machine to use, and the kitchen space is limited, adding one more worker will definitely help the business in a positive way, but his contribution to total production would not be as much as that of the first worker. Now, to give you a better picture, let's say you hire 5 or 6 workers in a small cafe. This cafe is a small place with only one coffee machine, so the kitchen will get overly crowded. Additional workers would have to share the coffee machine and work in even more crowded conditions, often getting in each other's way. Hence, as more workers are hired, it is natural that each additional worker gets to contribute less to total production. This idea is called the law of diminishing marginal product or productivity. As the kitchen gets more and more crowded, each additional worker adds less to total production. Does it make sense to you? Of course, this is assuming other inputs to production such as capital are fixed in the short run. And this law of diminishing marginal product leads to increasing marginal cost, as marginal product and marginal cost are inversely related to each other. I have explained this inverse relationship between the two quite in detail in my previous lectures. So if you want to know why diminishing marginal product or productivity implies increasing marginal cost, please refer to my previous lecture videos. I won't spend my precious time explaining this all over again here. Now, this concept of increasing marginal cost can be shown graphically as follows. As the quantity produced goes up, marginal cost goes up, due to diminishing marginal productivity. So, as Q goes up, MC goes up. But rather than in the form of a straight line, economists often prefer to graph it in the following way. Now, what does it look like? It looks like just do it, Air Jordan, like a Nike logo to me. Well, what this Nike logo-like graph suggests is that, maybe at the very beginning, adding 1 or 2 inputs won't necessarily bring about diminishing marginal productivity, and may even increase. Marginal productivity starts to diminish only beyond a certain point, like when the kitchen starts to get overly crowded or when the number of workers starts to exceed the number of coffee machines installed, and so on. Economists like this Nike logo as they think this represents a more realistic picture. Next, let's think about the basic objective of a firm. I mean that of a typical private firm, not some government agency or non-profit organization. What do you guys think a firm's objective is? Why is it operating? Are firms in the world trying to accomplish world peace? Or are they aiming to prevent climate change? Or are they trying to enhance the well-being of the entire human race? The answer is no. This world is not operated by angels. Firms pursue their own self-interests. Their true objective is, well, to some naive people's disappointment, maximization of their profits. Here is the non-calculus way of explaining how firms maximize their profits. Of course, I will cover the calculus version in another lecture video in due course. Now suppose that, at the initial stage of production, the following condition holds. That is, MR is greater than MC. What does this mean? Well, MR here refers to marginal revenue. Marginal revenue is simply additional revenue the firm can bring in by producing one more unit of output. And MC is, of course, additional cost the firm incurs by producing one more unit of output. If MR is greater than MC, would you produce one more output? Why not? You'll be better off if you produce one more output, as the benefit exceeds the cost. You'd better produce more output than sit down and do nothing. By the way, what really is marginal revenue? In a perfectly competitive market, prices are given. This means, firms are price takers, not price setters. Since the market is utterly competitive, firms must take the market price as given. So, in a way, the goods price is fixed from the firm's point of view. If the firm sells one more unit of output, it will bring in extra revenue worth the price of one output. So MR in a competitive market just equals P, which is fixed. And now, suppose the following condition holds. In this case, would you produce additional output? Well, you may be indifferent now, as the benefit of doing so is exactly offset by the cost. But why do we need to care about this equality condition? Well, it's due to the property of increasing marginal cost that we have assumed all along. When MR was greater than MC, the firm had an incentive to keep producing additional output. But then sooner or later, MR would equal MC, as MC keeps increasing as the quantity produced increases, while MR is fixed at the market price. So, over the course of time, the firm will inevitably be confronted with this equality condition. Now, what if MC has risen to the level where it is even higher than MR? Would you produce one more output? Well, of course not. Now, you'd better not produce any more output. The cost of doing so exceeds the benefit. You will lose money if you keep producing. So what all this suggests is that the firm will keep producing only until it reaches the point where MR equals MC. Beyond that point, it will not produce any more output as it will lose money. And what was MR in a perfectly competitive market? The market price. Therefore, the profit maximization condition for the firm can be written as follows. MR, which is equal to P, equals MC. Doesn't this profit maximization condition look really cool to you? To my eyes, it looks as cool as Einstein's E equals mc squared in physics. Let me retract my statement quickly. I was way too excited. It is not as cool as the law of physics. I apologize, students. Please pardon me. But anyway, what does all this mean? Well, it means that the MC curve is, in fact, the firm's supply curve. Okay, let's go back to the Nike logo, the MC curve that we drew. Here you can see that if the market price is set at P1, the firm would produce until its marginal cost of production reaches P1. Similarly, if the market price is set at P2, the firm would produce until its marginal cost of production reaches P2, and so on and so forth. So what this all means is that the firm's MC curve is in fact the firm's supply curve. But of course, we need to be a bit careful here, as the area where MC decreases cannot constitute the supply curve. This is because at that point, if you produce one more unit of output, the firm will incur marginal cost that is lower than marginal revenue, so the firm has an incentive to produce more. This means that the firm's supply curve should be only the part where it is upward sloping. The part of the MC curve in the shaded area of the graph does not constitute the supply curve. Additionally, there is a short-run shutdown condition we need to consider, that is, where total revenue is less than variable cost, or equivalently, average revenue is less than average variable cost. Some of you may be curious as to what those all mean, but I won't get into details here, as the primary purpose of today's lecture was to understand why the supply curve slopes upward. I will cover them later in my lectures on producer theory. So in summary, if someone asks, why is the supply curve upward sloping? Then you can intellectually answer his or her question by saying, well, it is basically due to the law of diminishing marginal product leading to the increasing marginal cost of production. As the firm maximizes its profit to the point where price equals marginal cost, The marginal cost curve in fact becomes the firm's supply curve, which is upward sloping due to the increasing nature of the marginal cost, as implied by the law of diminishing marginal product. I really do hope this is clear to all you students of economics. Please visit my channel often for new lecture videos. There's a lot more to come. You won't be disappointed. Maybe someday, you will find econ as sexy as I, the divine goddess of econ. May God bless you all.